back to the channel. My name is Rachel. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different than what I normally do. Most of the videos that I have up are videos on teaching strategies and things that you can do with your choirs to get them to sing better, hopefully. Today it's going to be more like just me talking at you. And this is something I've been thinking about for a while. I actually have a couple different ideas of videos that I'm going to put together in this same style, but really just kind of having a real conversation about what it means to be a music teacher in this day and age. And, just some of my thoughts that have come from observation, that have come from experience, and just really kind of thinking about some of the challenges that come along with teaching. So I hope that you find this helpful. If you don't, that's okay too. So I was on a walk yesterday, I think it was, and I don't listen to music or anything when I go for a walk. I used to listen to some podcasts, but I am afraid that someone's going to run me over. So I don't want any noise to be playing because I want to be able to hear a car that's about to run into me. I mean, true stories of Rachel. So I don't listen to anything when I'm on my walk. And I really like to hear the birds chirping and all of the different nature sounds. Like I walk past this one place where there's this little babbling brook, and I like to hear that too. But it leaves me alone with my thoughts, which is a dangerous place to be. And so I was on this walk and I just started talking into my phone all of these thoughts that I had about the topic of value systems and how it relates to our teaching. When I was a grad student at Florida State University back in the 1900s, I had a teacher named Dr. Cliff Madsen. And if you've written a research paper on music education, you've probably come across some of the literature that he has written. He is such a prolific researcher, has given so much to the space of music education from the research that he's done. So if that's not a name that you have some familiarity with, I would highly suggest that you look up some of his work. At this point, it might be a little outdated, but most of it is things that will stand the test of time. So anyway, I'm in this class with Dr. Madsen, and he starts talking about value systems and how as teachers, regardless of subject matter, our teaching is oftentimes an evidence of our value system. Now, let's be careful that we don't misconstrue what a value system is and think that I'm meaning preference. I'm not meaning preference. I'm strictly talking value system. So the beliefs that guide your life, right? Things that you hold to be true, that speak to who you are as a person. Think more of things like character traits rather than things that you like or don't like, okay? The things that you like or don't like, those would be your preferences. So for example, my preference is that I think most pop tunes arranged for choir are terrible. That doesn't mean I don't ever do them, because sometimes you have to draw the children in. I will say, and this is my value system too, that if that's all you're doing, that's your preference is very short-sighted. If you still like me at this point in my little video lecture, please give me a thumbs up. Okay. Value systems is something instead that we're going to talk about, specifically how it shapes how we teach and what we decide to teach. One of the underlying phrases that I use a lot when I'm working with my undergraduate students has to do with choices in the classroom. So these younger, budding music educators are thinking about all of these great ideas that they have, and they want to try this, that, and the other thing, and they've learned all of these strategies in their classes, and they can't wait to put them into practice in the field. But sometimes they come back and they'll say, I can't believe that Miss so-and-so lets such and such a student do this, or I hate this music, or, they're very sweet about it. I'm being silly, but they will express their their lack of interest in some of the choices that the teachers make. And my response to those students is kind of the baseline for this conversation about value systems. And it might sound a little harsh, but it penetrates their minds. They get it. Not your classroom, not your rules. You don't get to choose. So, and I can flip that for my own self, my classroom, my rules, I get to choose. And that's kind of the baseline of this. And it's, again, it sounds like very cut and dry. And in many ways it is. It reminds me of another phrase that one of my professors used to say when she was teaching the elementary general music methods class. I was her TA at Oregon, and she used to talk about the keys to the kingdom, and that your classroom is your kingdom. And as soon as you let the children, kind of take over in your classroom, you've given them the keys to the kingdom. So all of this is kind of along the same line. My rules, my classroom, I get to choose. It's my kingdom. I have the keys. And that's not to make it sound like it's sort of this my way or the highway, but it's just that there has to be some kind of expectation or ground rules that exist in a classroom in order for true learning to take place. If you don't have those things, then you're going to find yourself constantly managing behavior, constantly, I guess, not even knowing your own purpose in the classroom. And I found that oftentimes that can be one of the drivers for teachers leaving the profession and for children not participating in choir. So value system might sound like a very, a personal thing that you shouldn't bring into the classroom, because God forbid we bring our own personal ideas into the classroom. But really, I would suggest, and I'm going to suggest through the course of this video, that those value systems is what keeps us moving ahead. It's what keeps us moving forward and bringing both the teacher and the students to a place of great success. And one of my rules, I call them rules just because it's easy. One of my rules in my classroom is that no one gets to sit around and do nothing. So I have a college level women's ensemble, and it's the Come Y'all choir, right? So they have to do a placement audition just to make sure they can match pitch, and I decide what voice part to put them in. But I pretty much take everybody. And so that in and of itself is a value system, right? Where I want to create a space where people can just come and sing. And so again, back to one of my rules is that no one gets to just sit around and do nothing. So if I'm rehearsing the soprano 2s and the alto 1s, I tell everybody else, pick one of those 2 parts to sing. We're going to help each other reach the goals, which is to sing the correct pitches and the correct rhythms. And as we're first learning repertoire, that's what we do. I will say things like, you're welcome. Everyone gets to be a soprano 1. And if it's not comfortable for them to sing a soprano 1, it should, because they just need to get over themselves and sing soprano 1. But if it's not, then I say if it's too much of a challenge, then you may sing down an octave, right? So I make it so that everybody can participate and everyone should participate. The kind of nice side benefit of that is that they're sight reading more than one part. So they get to hear and have a kinesthetic experience with another part. And practice their sight reading. So it's all great. It sometimes is not very beautiful, but no one is just sitting around. Everyone is singing nearly all of the time. Another example of a value system in a classroom might be how we speak to and interact with one another. Mistakes will be made. There's always that one voice part that's kind of like the loose cannon. The poor tenors get it all the time. In the choir that I have, it's 4-part treble music. It's oftentimes the alto 1s, and that's because their part is usually the hardest, and it's so in the middle of everything else. But that doesn't mean that we can speak ill of the alto 1s or speak ill of the tenors, right? And I'm the first one to say, I will not blow sunshine. I was doing an all county this past weekend, and the Sopranos were singing, and I said to them, I'm like, Sopranos, that just was not good. I think there's a place for that. I said that to them after I had developed a bit of rapport. They knew that I cared for them deeply, but I can care for them and not like the way they sound at the same time. I'm not going to blow sunshine. I'm not going to American idolize these children and tell them that they're doing something well when they're not doing something well. So, what I will do though, after I've told them that something does not sound good or something is wrong or they're not listening, whatever the hard truth is, I'm going to tell them. But man, when they progress and they meet the expectation, I'm going to praise the business out of them. Like I might even fall down on the floor. They need to see that both can exist in a space where people love and care for each other. That's my value system. That they, at the end of the day, know that all the people around we're all in this together. We're a community of music majors. There's not one person that's doing something better or different. I shouldn't say that because sometimes people are doing things better, but we all have to work together towards a common end. And why do I do this? Why do I make space for the hard and the praiseworthy? I do it because teaching is a process and not a product. And if I tell them that something is good when it isn't, I have lied to those children. It's the baseline. It sounds harsh, but it's true. If I have told them that they have done something well and they haven't, I have lied to them. It's like when you look at your Sopranos and say, Sopranos, you're flat. Are all of the Sopranos flat? So you have to temper those truths with Sopranos. Many of you are singing out of tune. And oftentimes I will give them a reason for why they're singing out of tune. I asked you to sit tall with your music up, and you're not. The majority of you are not. So if we can all do that, I can guarantee that the sound will be less likely to be out of tune, right? So I'm telling them what's wrong, but I'm giving them a strategy to make it better. See, I'm already adding the pedagogy in, and I didn't even mean to. So let's get back to our value systems. But keep that in mind. Teaching is a process, not a product. And that process includes teaching your value system. My value system is that everyone has a job and they need to do it. My value system is we don't ever say mean things to people. We tell them the truth and we give them strategies to be better. That's the process for me. Like it can't be all sunshine and rainbows and choir. It just can't be. And it's kind of becoming that. It's this consumer idea of that we have to just entertain these people in front of us and make them want to come back, and that it's all about us, that it's how we present the music and it's how we do this, that, and the other. No, the music needs to be the reinforcement for them to come back. And if the music is being sung poorly, they're not coming back. They're just not. So that's why I choose that as a value system. This idea of teaching is like it's become product oriented rather than process oriented. And and I'd love to blame assessments and all these things, but I think those things are great. There needs to be a little fire lit under those children to know that they're going to sing in front of people and be judged. That makes them work harder. I say go for it. But it's also important that the process that gets us to that place is formative and instructive, right? And we can't do that through this idea of consumerism. I think that's why a lot of teachers get themselves into trouble and they get worn out. It's exhausting to try and, keep people on your page all of the time. Well, don't try to keep them on your page. Just teach them the music and pick good music and they'll stay on your page. Like it's not rocket science. With the idea of value systems, there can often be this, right? Because your value system doesn't align with somebody else's value system. So let's talk about that for a minute. We, as teachers, you go into, unfortunately, any kind of space and you hear people complaining about 4 things: administrators, parents, colleagues, students, or, I guess I should qualify, as school music teachers. Those are the things that we often complain about. Even higher education, we still complain about all those 4 things. And what do we complain about? We complain that our administrators are ignorant and don't understand what we do. They only come to the concert so that they can do their little speech. Okay, fine. We complain that the parents don't stay in their lane and let us do our job because we're the ones that know better, right? We complain about our peers or our colleagues because they're lazy and they're just, counting down the days till they can collect a check and go into the bliss of retirement. Okay, fine. And then the students, and I actually called my students this last week. I called them energy vampires because they were sucking the energy out of me. And that's oftentimes our complaint about the students, is that they're just taking so much from us, right? Well, what if we went back to that really mean thing I said at the beginning of the video, which is my classroom, my rules, I get to choose. Well, what happens when you're outside of that space? Okay. Administrators, they're in charge of a building with lots of teachers and lots of children. Okay. That's kind of their space and their rules, and they get to choose. Sorry, you have to come under that leadership. And if you don't like it, then you should find another place. Okay. Because some administrators are not good. I'm not pretending that. But if you're teaching in a school with an administrator, there's an expectation that you're going to come under their leadership. And when you sign the contract, you say, I will do that. Okay. Just FYI. I'm sure that really ticked some people off. It's not fun to think about it, but it just is the truth. The second thing is these parents. My classroom, my rules, I get to choose. Well, guess what? It's their kid. It's their kid. And they're tasked as their parent to make sure that their child is safe, that their child is loved and cared for and educated well. So with that is going to come opinions. So sorry. Sorry, not sorry. The colleagues thing. Guess what? It's their career. They get to decide what they do with it. You don't get to decide. I don't get to decide. Do I know people who are lazy teachers? Yeah. Sometimes I can be lazy too. But at the end of the day, I get to choose if I'm lazy or not. You don't get to tell me if I'm lazy or not. And then fourthly, the students. God love them. They're young. They're still figuring life out. You just need to be a little bit sweet to them. However, do not lie and have expectations. Being sweet does not mean being coddling, right? So those four creatures that we have to interact with as teachers come into play, and oftentimes our value system is not theirs. And it might not feel very good, but that's just the way it goes. And to spend energy and time complaining about it and talking about it, it does nothing. It does nothing except pull you further away from these people that you're supposed to be working with, right? You're supposed to be, I shouldn't say supposed to be, but it would be to your benefit to get those people on your page. And the way you have to do that sometimes is to be on their page too, in some way. Like, I'm not saying that you need to, defy your own character or ideals or beliefs, but you can be nice and not talk trash about them. Pot calling kettle black. I'm with you. I do it, right? Raise your hand if you've ever talked bad about an administrator, parent, colleague, or student behind their back. Yeah, we all do it. It's not right, but we do it. At the end of the day, we don't have control over the choices of other people, right? So my suggestion would be, and this is a reminder to myself too, is just to not waste time there. Don't waste time in that space. Yeah, so we have our own value systems in the classroom. We have the value systems that come kind of in conflict with the people that we exist with in this thing called education. But probably the hardest space for our value systems to exist is in a shared space like the classroom. So if you have like a co-teacher, or if you're in a music department where you have, around here they call them music departments, right? And in a public school system in particular, but maybe you've got a music supervisor that you have to answer to. So I'm talking like smaller level type spaces where your value systems come in conflict with other people's. That can be a significant challenge. And this is probably one of the pricklier spots that we'll delve into this idea of value system. People, they have chosen their values for a reason, right? It's their belief, it's their tenet, it's their ethos, however you want to describe it. That's how I've chosen my value system. And it really it hurts when people question that value system. And I have found that usually when the way in which somebody questions my value system, they bring into the conversation a lot of assumptions about me as a person. For instance, like I teach at a faith-based institution, I'm a person of faith, and people will make assumptions about the values that I choose because they know that I'm a person of faith. Well, they've never asked me about, why thus and such a value of mine. Is that because of your faith? No, they just assume that that's what it is. Whereas, it might be part of my faith, but at the very baseline, the reason that I choose my first value, which is for people to be doing something all the time, is because that's being a good contributing member to society, is to do your job. Does the Bible say that too? Yeah. But that's just general basic knowledge. If you're given a task, you do it, and you do it to the best of your ability. And that's all I'm asking people to do. But people will say, well, that's because she's this and such and such. Well, ask me about it. Ask me why I choose to have my singers stand more than I have them sit. Is it just because I'm on a power trip? No, there's a reason behind it. That's a value system. Or not a system, that's a value, right? So oftentimes in our own close-knit space, we come in contrast with people because of our value systems not aligning. Well, instead of just assuming that the value systems are different and therefore bad, let's sit and have a conversation about it. Maybe we can find ways to incorporate our value system into somebody else's value system without compromising what is important. You'll find this especially to be true when you're working with like older people. So high school, college, community members, because they're more in tune with what their personal values are. But at the end of the day, like, I don't get to decide for them either. I don't get to decide for my students what their value choices are. I only get to decide what my values for my space are. And sometimes they might not come under those values. They might disagree. And while I would love to say that's okay, I don't like it when people disagree with my values because they're my values and I think that they're important. But they're not so important that I can't have a really candid conversation with the person or people about X, Y, and Z. An example of this could be a couple of years ago. This is a number of years ago now. I had a colleague in the area who had programmed Pablo Casal's Nigra Sum, and the students read the translation and were deeply offended by that translation. And so their teacher was a grad student of mine at the time, and he just reached out. He's like, "Hey, Rachel, I don't know what to do about this." He was so distraught that the students would be offended by a piece of music that he chose. And so, he and I had a really good conversation about context and having an open conversation about something. Again, teaching, because this is the lesson to be learned here, right? let's not make assumptions about this particular piece of music, and that just because the first line of it is I am black, that it has something to do with, current issues that we're facing that are real and that are hard and important and all of that. But that it was a line, it's from the Bible, and it wasn't referring to any sort of contemporary issue or, conversation that we're having. But he was able to have a really open, candid conversation with those students. So their value system was here, his was here, but it really wasn't. So when they had that conversation, they realized, oh no, we actually are in line with one another, but context got in the way. One of the things I want to touch on a little bit is how value systems can morph. I have a little bit of a hard time with talking about value systems changing. I would love to say that you sort of stake your claim as far as values are concerned and you go forth, like never to return to that conversation again. But I'm a realist and know that value systems do change, and they change because of the experiences that you have, the places that you go, the people that you meet. But oftentimes our value systems change because we are falling under somebody else's spell, so to speak, right? Whomever's voice is the loudest at a particular place and time, that's the value system that we are going to align ourselves with. And I would just caution you against that. I caution myself against that. How many times have I thought, oh, I'm going to put this up on socials and ... And then I start thinking about it. I'm like, I probably shouldn't put that up. Because I don't, a couple reasons. Number one is because I really don't want to, okay, this is a little bit of an aside, but I'm going to go there anyway. So I'm a gardener, right? And I love being outside and in my garden and doing all the gardening things in the summer especially. And so I have teenagers, so my teenagers don't want me to put pictures up of them on my socials anymore. So I put my pictures of my vegetables up. I'm thinking, what else am I going to do, right? Well, people start making such a big deal about my vegetables, and then they say things like, I wish I could have a garden, or this one really drives me crazy, I wish I had the time to garden. Everybody has the time to do whatever anybody wants to have the time to do. Don't even get me started with that. But they start making these, I feel like it's like they're value shaming me, right? That my vegetables are like making people feel bad about themselves or less than. It's a vegetable. I literally put them on my Instagram so that I can remember when I plant things. And how big is my broccoli going to be come May 15th? And when do I harvest my potatoes? Like, I put them there because I have a terrible memory, not because I'm trying to shame anybody. But it's amazing the impact that can have on somebody. Now, turn it kind of the other way around. I put pictures up when I do festivals. I think it's fun. The kids think it's great. They get a big hoot out of it. And it helps with recruiting because then they ask, they want to follow me and what have you. And then if they decide they want to attend my institution, right? It's like this open door. That's why I do it. So you just have to be careful of what you put out there. There's a lot of great stuff, like people put their warm-up regimen in there, or their sight reading or things like that, which I love. It's so cool. But as a consumer of social media, that's one thing. As a teacher, my value system can't be determined by all of that stuff because that stuff is fleeting. It's not going to be here forever. And it's, it'll be different. Just think about even 10 years ago. Was Instagram even a thing 10 years ago? I don't know. Because it's all kind of morphed together. But I see colleagues posting things all the time about this, that, and the other, all these successes, and I'm so happy for them. But does that impact my values that I have for my own choir? Like, I want to be able to sing at ACDA, or I want to do this, that, and the other. But I find that those things for me, and maybe you're not in the same camp and that's great for you. For me, that becomes almost like a point of shame or something, that I'm not to that point. So I have to step back. This is where my values, my unchanging values, come into play. Because oftentimes we see those things and we change our values so that we can attain those same things. But then I remember that my value is the classroom space, the rehearsal space, where I get to impart ideas about music and text and how we can perform things meaningfully and do it in community with other people. Like, that's what's important to me. And as soon as I try to run the rat race that I see on social media, that's when I start to be like, what's the point? I'll never get there. Or, I'll never be good as such and such. I'm at a place in my life where it's taken a while, and I'm at a place where I just don't care about that stuff anymore. And it's not that I don't care about it because I don't think my students are worth it. I think they are. But I don't want that to be the point of what I do. That's my value system. To teach people where they are and work through that process with them so that the product is this beautiful representation of their hard work, and they're ascribing to some values perhaps that I have imparted to them based off my own system, so that together we can come to a greater place of understanding. As I mentioned at the beginning, I have colleagues. I feel like colleagues are just leaving the profession in droves, and in so many ways I don't blame them. Like, it's become really hard to be a teacher, especially in the public school realm, and I'm sorry for that. But I wonder if we could all just do a better job of setting ourselves up with an attainable value system. What's the most important thing? What's your it? What's your why? And sort of just hang that on your heart every day that you go into the classroom, and let that be the motivation for what you do, without listening to this outside noise, whomever's voice is the loudest, right? Whether it's the administrator, a parent, a colleague, social media, whatever it is. Put those horse blinders on. Go into the classroom with your value system in your pocket and use that to bring about great things in the music classroom, and try to worry less about the other things. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think it will be worth it. At the end of the day, teaching is not about the teacher. It's not about me, and it's not about you. Teaching is about the people in front of us, whether it's sweet little cherub choir at your church or it's a auditioned college level ensemble, right? Those people are there, they're entrusting themselves to us. We need to be good stewards of those people, and we need to be good stewards of their time, irregardless of what's happening outside. And we need to teach them great music with strong pedagogy that will help build character. Way back in the olden days, Plato talked about the value of music was that, one of the values of music was that it created better contributors to society. I think that we need to just come back to that. Music is great. I like math too. Like, I like a lot of things. I like basketball. I like football. What do all those things have in common? Well, when you work together towards a similar end, good things will happen. That's why music.